was 14 years old.
I was 16 years old.
I was 16.
17.
14 years old.
This is me.
This was me.
This is me.
When I met Jeffrey Epstein.
This is me when I met Jeffrey Epstein.
There are about 1,000 of us.
It's time to bring the secrets out of the shadows. It's time to shine a light into the darkness.
Okay, so there's this high-stakes political battle erupting over the Jeffrey Epstein files, and it's all been set off by one lawmaker's really explosive interview. In this explainer, we're going to break down the specific allegations they're making, the political chess game happening in Congress, and the alleged strategy to keep these documents from seeing the light of day. Let's get right into it.
Looking at a vote to release the Epstein files as soon as tomorrow in Congress. That's something Donald Trump refuses to do. He is now in retreat, though. He has been changing his tune in order to manage the PR crisis, but not releasing the files. The pressure on Trump's DOJ comes amid wider allegations of abusing power and the Justice Department to cover up aspects of this sordid Epstein case.
It's clear that's all they're thinking about there. It is full-time, 24/7 focus on blocking the release of the Epstein files.
The questions everyone is asking is why fight this so hard?
This might be a big smokescreen, these investigations, to open a bunch of them as a last-ditch effort to prevent the release of the Epstein files.
Misusing a new investigation of what the president calls a hoax is, of course, part of that.
So, what is this fight really all about? Well, if you ask the lawmaker at the very center of it, this goes way beyond just releasing a few documents. We're talking about legal subpoenas, intense political maneuvering, and some truly bombshell allegations that they claim reach the absolute highest levels of power.
This battle is not over, and that a lot of this, as it has since its inception, is going to fall to you on House oversight to keep the drum beating. Tell me how you see this playing out first, just over the course of the next week or so, and then what you think the work of your committee is going to be on the back end to actually ensure, should this move through the House, should this move through the Senate, should it even get Donald Trump's signature, that you actually see those files released?
Yeah, well, let's just be clear. Not only should and can Donald Trump release the files, he is legally required to already, because we subpoenaed these files months ago, and he has refused to comply with the subpoena. And so Donald Trump is already breaking the law in not producing these files. And this discharge petition is another layer that is essentially a vote in the House now and then hopefully in the Senate. But it is not what is legally necessary to force Donald Trump to release the files. We have already subpoenaed the files, and he is not releasing them. We expect tomorrow that the Speaker will expedite the vote to the floor. I think at this point, the number of Republicans, as you've said, is a dam break. I think it's likely that all of them vote for the files. You know, I came directly from the Capitol, and literally as I was headed down the elevator, I heard one of my Republican colleagues responding to a reporter who asked him if he was going to vote for the files. And he said, yes, I'm going to vote for them. And she said, why? And he said, well, because I knew it was going to pass. So this is not political conviction. This is not moral conviction. This is a bunch of politicians who know that Donald Trump for months was threatening them to not only not pass this discharge petition, but personally threatening them that it would be an attack on him in the White House if they called for the release of these files. And we are not only not going to stop, I want to just emphasize how damning the evidence is that came out of the estate last week, because we've not only subpoenaed Donald Trump, we've also subpoenaed the estate. We are expecting to release subpoenas soon for financial records. Not only is there this emails that have been broadcast across the media, there's 1,600 documents in that file dump where Donald Trump is named. And I'm going to be honest with you guys, I actually went through the files this weekend in depth. Donald Trump is not only named over and over in them, it is discussed this trial in which he was accused of raping a 13-year-old at Epstein's house. There is extensive discussions about a subpoena of Donald Trump in one of Jeffrey Epstein's cases in which he was accused for rape and sexual abuse. He was subpoenaed and gave a deposition in that case. There is extensive discussion between Donald Trump, Ghislaine Maxwell, and Mr. Wolf about not only Trump coming to his house, but Epstein says in these emails that he has photographs of Trump with girls.
We are now 350 days away from the midterms, and the House is set to vote on whether to release the Epstein files tomorrow. For many months now, the story has been about a few Republicans like Thomas Massie and Marjorie Taylor Greene going against Donald Trump's wishes by pushing for the release of the files. But late last night, the president changed his tune, saying he now wants House Republicans to vote yes. But to be clear, this was not his position up until last night. In fact, he doesn't even need to wait for a vote.
Oh, this is disgusting.
Right.
First of all, it is disgusting, and we can't say it enough. We should not be having a national. We should not have to be in a place where we have to have a national conversation about pedophilia, because the United States government, aided and abetted by the Trump administration and very powerful people inside and outside of it, are going through great lengths to protect the names of individuals and potentially organizations that had some kind of involvement with Jeffrey Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell and the abuse that they enacted on children. It is disgusting that we have to have this conversation. There's so much out there floating on the internet and in the ether. I just want to clear a few things up. If Democrats' names are in the files, do you want those names released?
Absolutely. Prosecute them all.
Prosecute them all. Okay. Are you doing this now to distract from the fact that the Democrats in the Senate decided to vote to reopen the government?
No, we are doing this for the victims.
Doing this for the victims, got it. You mentioned that you all are preparing subpoenas for financial crimes. Can you just give us anything else on that? Because I have heard from the beginning that survivors of Ghislaine Maxwell and Jeffrey Epstein's abuse have told you all, members of Congress, privately to follow the money.
Yes. They did tell us to follow the money, and I'll just say this, the document dump that came from the estate is all online. Please go online, read the documents for yourself. They're plain as day. Even in the email correspondence that Epstein had with multiple other people in his own emails, he talks about potential money laundering involving Donald Trump, even while Donald Trump was president. And in addition to that, one of the weird things that the estate released was some bank records in which everything was redacted except for a financial transfer between Jeffrey Epstein and Donald Trump.
You've got to understand, at its heart, this is a conflict that's playing out right now in the halls of Congress. It's pitting lawmakers against each other and against the executive branch in a really dramatic public showdown. All right, so let's start with the mechanics of this fight. It all kicked off with a legal demand, it's escalated to a forced vote, and it's all being fueled by a very, very direct accusation. So first things first, we need to talk about this key term, a subpoena. It's super important to get this right. It's not a suggestion, it's not a request, it is a formal legal order. And according to the lawmaker at the center of this whole thing, one was issued months ago for these Epstein files. And that's what brings us to the core of their claim. This lawmaker is straight up alleging that because the White House hasn't complied with that subpoena, the law is already being broken. See, from their point of view, this isn't even a debate anymore about whether to release the files. It's about an alleged refusal to follow an existing legal command. Note, to force the issue, they're using this interesting political tool called a discharge petition. It's basically a way to bypass the usual leadership and force a vote out onto the House floor. And, the lawmaker we're referencing even shared this wild story about a colleague who basically admitted they'd only vote yes because they knew it was going to pass anyway. It just shows you the kind of immense political pressure that's at play here. Okay, so what's actually in these files? What makes this whole thing so intense? Well, according to the lawmaker making these claims, the contents, they're just damning. So get this, the lawmaker says they've personally gone through the files, and in just one document dump from the Epstein estate, Donald Trump's name apparently pops up in 1,600 different documents. That is a staggering number, and it really sets the stage for some very specific, very serious allegations. So what are these 1,600 references all about? Well, the lawmaker claims the documents get into some really serious stuff. They supposedly discuss a past trial where Trump was accused of raping a 13-year-old at Epstein's house. They also allege the files mention a deposition Trump gave in a totally separate case, and even include emails where Epstein himself claimed to have photographs of Trump with girls. But then there's this quote, and this is where things get, well, pretty cryptic. In an email to Ghislaine Maxwell, Epstein allegedly wrote this line. Now, on its own, you might look at that and think, what does that even mean? But the lawmaker claims to have the disturbing context. And here's the bombshell context, according to the source. That email was supposedly about a survivor who had told police she was actively recruited right from Mar-a-Lago. The lawmaker's allegation is that Epstein was saying Trump knew what was happening on his own property and just hadn't barked or raised any kind of alarm. But listen, this fight isn't just about who said what or what's in an email. A whole new front has opened up, and this one, it's all about following the money. And where did this push come from? The lawmaker is really clear on this. It came directly from Epstein's survivors. They were the ones who privately went to members of Congress and urged them, follow the money. So this slide kind of breaks down how this all supposedly went down. First, you have the tip from the survivors. So Congress starts getting subpoenas ready for financial records. And the lawmaker called this a carrot, the Epstein estate releases some bank records where everything is blacked out except for a financial transfer involving Donald Trump. The takeaway, at least for this lawmaker, is that the estate is basically dropping breadcrumbs, pointing investigators straight toward potential money laundering. So with all this pressure building, what's the other side doing? Well, the lawmaker claims they're playing a pretty strategic game of chess, basically using the law itself as a kind of shield. All right, take a look at this public statement. The House can have any file they are legally entitled to. Sounds reasonable, right? Almost like they're being cooperative. But that lawmaker argues those last few words, legally entitled to. That's not cooperation. That's a carefully crafted loophole designed to justify holding on to the documents. And here's the alleged game plan, laid out step by step. First, you announce a new Department of Justice investigation into some of the other people named in the files. Then you assign a specific U.S. attorney to that case. And finally, you use that ongoing investigation as legal cover to argue that Congress is no longer legally entitled to the files, which effectively blocks their release.
So what you have here is this incredibly tense standoff. On one side, you have a demand for total transparency, and on the other, this alleged strategy to control and contain all the fallout. The big question is, where does it go from here?
But the one thing the source is adamant about is that this fight is absolutely not over. Not by a long shot. They really stress that the victims themselves are prepared to come forward and share their own stories, publicly. And to wrap up their interview, the lawmaker left things with this very direct, very defiant message, which you can see right here, making it crystal clear they plan to see this fight all the way through to the end. And really, all of this leaves us with a huge, fundamental question. When you have a clash between legal orders, raw political power, and these kinds of explosive allegations, who actually gets to decide what the public sees and what stays hidden?